Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore's end-of-season press conference. Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. A lot of people will tell you that the best time of the year is Christmas. And they're kind of right. But to me, the best time of the year is Mickey Loomis and the Saints head coach, which right now is Kellen Moore with a fresh cut into their press conference. So sit back. This is going to be long. All right? This is 50 minutes and 12 seconds. If I know me, this will probably be a 2+ hour video, and I don't hear anybody complaining. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on in here. Sit down, kick your feet up, keep your socks on. Let's not get out of control. Let's enjoy the show.
When you think back to
immediately, we had to switch to NOF's video. This is New Orleans Football's video. We tried to watch the Saints official video, but their audio is jacked up. God, why can they not get the audio levels of the people asking questions correct? Guys, just get a mic. Jesus.
Back to Mickey, when you think back to a year ago, kind of how different things were. No head coach, maybe some quarterback questions and coming off that season, but now ending a year strong with a good coach in place, or potentially, the franchise QB. How much easier does that make, entering an offseason when, you feel like those questions are answered?
This guy must be watching the channel, but it blows my mind. I lay in bed every night and I stare up at my ceiling and I think about how different it was a year ago when Darren Rizzi is the interim head coach. Dennis Allen was fired. We have no OC. We have no DC. We have no nothing. All right, Derek Carr is a starting quarterback, and he's reviewing Rolls Royces on the Homegrown Network for 400 viewers. Nothing's going on. All right, and then to think where we are now, and Kellen Moore is sitting there, my best friend in the world, is sitting there, and we've got Tyler Shough, and we've got all these rookies, and everything's so great. And my other best friend in the world, look at him, looking great, Mickey. He could have took the easy way out, and he could have said, "Yeah, let's get Mike McCarthy. Who cares? No one's gonna care. Let's just get Mike McCarthy and let's just be done with this whole thing. I got to play some golf." He could have done that, but instead he said, "I'm taking a chance. I'm getting a young, innovative, first-time head coach." Now you may say, "Yeah, but Mickey got lucky." Well, it's kind of interesting that the last time he did this and got lucky, LOL, he got a young, innovative head coach, right?
Yeah.
First-time head coach, excuse me. I'm talking about Sean Payton.
Well, yeah, it certainly makes it easier. But it's different. There's still lots of questions. There's lots of things that we have to accomplish and do. It's just the tasks are different.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing.
These are the tasks you want, though, right? Like 100%. The tasks are different, but the questions kind of still do remain. You do have to now fill gaps in free agency. You have to fill gaps in the draft. You have the 8th overall pick. So in a way, yes, like it's easier because the big questions are answered. You don't have to go through the coaching carousel. You don't have to, evaluate who the hell is going to be your quarterback. The two big questions are answered, but you still have to address free agency, the draft, in a smart way to fill this roster to compete next year.
Well, just real quick, just maybe it's obvious, but I feel like that's what this is for. I know Kellen was asked a couple of times during the year. Tyler Shough is your quarterback in 2026. There's not going to be a competition. You all are comfortable going forward with that?
Yeah.
Brother, were you watching the games? What you been doing? Where you been? Is Tyler Shough your quarterback in 2026? What's the other option? Can you imagine if Kellen says, "Nah, we're gonna go back to a quarterback competition between Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, and Tyler Shough"? This guy needs to get on a plane, fly over to Buffalo, and ask the Bills if Josh Allen's going to be their starter next year. And then he can get on a plane and fly over to the Rams and say, "Hey, man, if Matt Stafford's back, is he going to be a quarterback next year? Or are y'all thinking about maybe a quarterback competition?" And then he can go to Chicago and say, "Hey, is Caleb Williams, are y'all kind of good to go there moving forward, or what are we thinking here? We thinking about bringing back Tyson Bagent what's going on?" I mean, what do you mean?
Agree with Tyler. Tyler's done an awesome job through this entire process. He's gotten a ton better. He's taken advantage of a bunch of opportunities. So we're excited to have a full offseason to build. I thought what Spencer did in the season also is worth commending. What he put out there on film, I think, is really good film. He's a really good quarterback. He's a starting caliber quarterback as well. And so I feel like that quarterback room has, the depth and obviously the talent to be really successful.
Mickey, what has been the most surprising thing to you about Tyler Shough's rookie year success?
If I was Mickey, I would say nothing surprised me because we brought Tyler in and we expected blah, blah, blah. We had high hopes for him and we knew he had this in him and happy to see the success and we're looking for continued success.
I don't know that there's anything surprising for us. I mean, we thought a lot of him going into the draft. And collectively, I'm talking about our personnel staff, our coaches. So we felt like, man, this guy's got a chance to be a real good quarterback in the league, and that's why we drafted him. So I think,
I just got freaking goosebumps. I mean, why am I not in the front office? Why am I not part of the group here? Why am I not sitting at that table? Like it's crazy. I mean, I'm sitting here answering for the head coach, answering for the GM, saying exactly what they're saying. I mean, God.
I don't think surprising is the right word. Probably progressed a little faster than maybe we expected. But I think our coaches, did a great job with him. I think our players embraced his opportunity, and obviously the player himself embraced his opportunity.
Mickey, is there a balance to strike between having like a young team, a young core, but also like an extremely winnable division? Like, how do you like fall on those things between like building the young core versus like you can win the NFC South possibly, next year?
Yeah. Well, I think all of us, every guy with every team, whether it's a coach or GM, thinks they have a vision for how they can win their division, regardless of how strong or weak you may think it is. So we're going to approach it the same way. Hey, how do we improve enough to win the division? And we don't want to just win the division. I mean, we don't want to be an 8-8 or 8-9 winning team in a division. We want to win the division, be dominant, and have a chance to make a run in the playoffs. So That's what our goal is going to be.
I think so. If you ever played World of Warcraft, you'll have like stat priorities where certain stats are better than other stats for your character. I think age and talent, or age and like a good roster or whatever, the good roster, talent, however you want to phrase it, that is always the dominant trait. Like age is only really a thing when it's a thing. Like an aging player, like DeMario Davis, for example. DeMario Davis is old, but his talent and his results don't reflect that. So the only time the age is relevant at all is if you go and sort by age. But he might as well be 26 as far as on the field. Having a young core who are playing at the level that the Saints are playing and progressing at the level they're playing, I think you just kind of let the young part go and the whole we have a young core, develop them, do this, and this, don't rush them. I think you let that go as long as the results and the talent and all that stuff is where it's at. Just like Tyler. Tyler was a rookie quarterback, but he didn't need to have training wheels on him. He needed to just go out there and put the team on his back and try and win these games. So next year, or this offseason, I wouldn't hesitate to thrust this team into, hey, we're competing now. I would not hesitate to say, look, our goal is 10 wins. Our goal is to win the division. Like Mickey said, I don't want to walk into the division. Like I'm filming this before Carolina gets dog walked by the Rams. I don't want to just say, okay, we lost our last couple of games. We won a 3-team tiebreaker to win a division and we got smoked by whatever team. We had absolutely no chance at all. You want to position the team to be a threat in the NFC and to be a threat throughout the playoffs, no matter who you're playing. You're not trying to just take advantage of an easy schedule or whatever. And, so I wouldn't worry about the age thing one bit. I would worry about your culture. I'd worry about your vision and your locker room, and do the additions you make to the draft and free agency, do they jive with what you already have going on? But I wouldn't worry at all about, we have a young team. We don't want to progress this thing too fast.
You worry about like having everybody on the same timeline, or is there like a possible mix of having some older guys on 1-year deals versus acquiring 27-year-olds?
Well, I think every team has that, regardless of whether you plan for it or not. You're going to have that circumstance because you need and want some veteran players in your building. But we do talk about, hey, the core players on your team and what's their timeline in terms of contracts and how do we manage it. So we do have discussions about it.
I talked about this in a video recently about the timeline thing. And right now the Saints have like 2 timelines, which is Shuck's timeline and then the young core's timeline. And they're different because Shuck's a quarterback. So when he gets paid, that is a big wrinkle in the math. All right, let's say Shuck is who he is for the next couple of years. He's probably going to get paid around that season 3. And that contract is probably going to be in that, $200 million range if he's as good as advertised. The young core will certainly not be getting those kind of contracts, right? So he has his own timeline, or the Saints have their own timeline of Shuck's rookie deal. But then you have a separate sub-timeline of the young core. So their timeline is probably closer to like 5 years. Shuck's is closer to 3 years. And those are kind of within the same window, within the same umbrella. That years 4 and 5 get a little different because we would assume Shuck is getting paid there. But that's the current timeline for the Saints.
Without knowing like your full history, I mean, it's been at least a very, very long time since you're like building around a rookie contract at quarterback. Mm-hmm. Like what sort of advantages does that give you from your perspective?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question because the Saints have never done that. The Saints have really never. I mean, Breeze was not on a rookie contract, obviously, and that's where the majority of the success that Mickey and these decisions and kind of the style of how the Saints have operated came from. So this is kind of the first time because you can't the way the salary is now and the way the NFL is now, like you can't compare it with 1975 or whatever. Like you have to. When it comes to this, you got to look at the last 20 years. So this is kind of the first time the Saints have had a crack at this, where they're really trying to compete with a rookie quarterback contract, and it is kind of rare. It is kind of rare for a lot of teams to do that. A lot of teams will draft a quarterback and draft a high quarterback, and it takes a little while for them to be good. Whatever. The Saints are in win now mode with a rookie quarterback contract after 9 games. So. It is a unique situation, not just for the franchise, but for any franchise.
It's just easier to manage your resources. I don't know if it's easy. I don't know if easier is the right word, but you have some leeway to manage resources a little bit,
yeah.
and so, but you still have to make really good decisions.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think it's pretty well documented that teams that have a quarterback on a rookie deal have been able to do some things and have some success, and so. Part of that is just building your roster and managing it over, the 2, 3, 4 year period that you're facing, and it's just a different equation. It's a different math equation, really.
And we've talked just a lot in recent years about we want to get the cap kind of back toward neutral, I guess. You feel you're almost there on that? Do you feel there?
I feel pretty good about it. Yes, I do feel good about where we're at.
Well, that's also why the Saints are in a unique position to do this, because they're the godfathers of how teams operate the cap now in the NFL. Like the Saints, I know people don't like it, right? Gum smack and mix, salary cap hell, whatever. Even though anyone who watches this channel knows that's all fugazi and absolute, just zero ball knowledge takes anyways. But the Saints are the team that made the Eagles what they are. The Saints are the team that made these other rosters able to do what they do. But because of Breeze and the timeline of the Saints, they couldn't really, they were at the back end of their life expectancy whenever all these other teams took off. But now the Saints have jumped to the front to where the Saints are one of the youngest teams with lots of money and a rookie contract or a quarterback. So now you get to see the Godfather with all these resources when that's in vogue in the NFL. The way to do it now is the Saints blueprint. But the Saints haven't been able to do it because of the quarterback situation, what all has happened the last couple of years, coaching problems. But now they're in a perfect situation to do it. So now you get to see the Saints do exactly what they want to do and exactly what they did to be successful for 2 decades.
Along these team building lines, I mean, we've had this session so many years in the past where you don't like the word rebuilding or like the complete teardown or whatever. Did you adjust like your willingness to embrace that? I mean, there were obviously some signs trading Rashid Shaheed, trading for Jaylen Pulk, all the rookies who played and stuff. Did you find yourself even leaning more into that than you expected?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would say that's true.
And what led to it and what did you like about it, I guess, as you were going through it?
Yeah, I think the beginning of that was just Derek not being able to play this year. That's the beginning of it. And then, you look at, okay, we're going to have a young quarterback and there's going to be a lot of development. And so how can we develop the rest of the team along with his development so that, we marry this timeline of his improvement and the things that we're going to need to be able to do to support him, with a really good defense, with, a good run game. And so those are the kinds of things you keep in mind.
The Saints rebuild was the most obvious thing in the world. And it was so serendipitous how it all played out. When Lattimore gets traded, that's the obvious, okay, we're resetting. Then you have a new coach coming in. It would be different if you went and got an older coach. But then you go get the youngest coach in the NFL, a first-time head coach, which signals again, guys, this is going to be we're rebuilding. We're giving this guy some time. All right, we got a 36-year-old head coach at the time, rookie head coach. This is not a win-now situation. Then Carr retires. Okay, which fiscally, saves us some cash. But then it also leaves this huge hole at quarterback, most important position, which then tells you again, okay, we're going to rebuild, right? Then you see the Rashid Shaheed trade. Then you see the Trevor Penning trade. You see all this draft capital. You see them make every single pick in the draft last year, which tells you we're getting younger and cheaper. This has been such a obvious plan for so long. It's crazy that just kind of now people are realizing what all's happened. But this started a long time ago. This whole obvious rebuild really kind of started around the Lattimore trade.
Along those lines, Kellen, was it always your coaching philosophy to play guys like Quincy Riley and Danny Stutzman and Jonas Sanker as early as you did, or did that come from conversations about, hey, this looks like the direction of this team right now?
I think the important thing about that is that those guys were ready when the opportunity presented themselves, and no timelines are going to be the same. Felt like Tyler's development was a great example of that, of his willingness to get better through an entire season. Quincy kind of had an opportunity through injury to hop in there. Danny kind of was a guy that I think is a great example of just being a really talented player that we feel great about and find different roles and different opportunities where he can get on the field. And so a lot of these timelines were different, but I think it was important to see these guys play and have exposure, and I thought a lot of these guys took advantage of the opportunity.
This was a product of the draft. This was a product of the Saints wanting high rep, high experience, power program, high character guys. And then there was a lot of injuries. I mean, Jonas Sanker doesn't play if Tyrann doesn't retire and there's not injuries immediately to Blackman, right? He probably doesn't get on the field. And then he gets on the field, but because he is such a experienced player, he doesn't need any time at all. He needs zero time to get up to speed and be ready to roll, right? If he's a safety from Indiana Tech, who's a 3-year developmental player, he's not going to be able to play. He needs time. But none of these guys needed time. Danny Stutzman was all-American. Danny Stutzman was a big-time player. Devin Neal, big-time player. These guys stepped in and immediately were ready. There was no ramp-up period. There was no confusion. So I think that's why when we go into this draft season, you need to go ahead and look at the snap count. If you got a guy like Nick Anderson's an example from LSU, Nick Anderson's got like 30 something catches. Like, yeah, he may be super talented, whatever, but that's just not what the Saints are looking for. The Saints are looking for guys who have a ton of experience, a ton of snaps, team captains, things like that. The high development, high risk, high reward, physically gifted, whatever players. I mean, it's only been one draft, but that's just not what they look for.
How would you all evaluate surprised at all by Tyler's development? Did any part of it, sort of wow you a little bit during the course of this last 8 weeks or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some flashes there that he is, whoa, that's really good. But I don't think surprise is the right word because, you have expectations when you draft somebody in the second round or first round, and because you value the talent and you have a vision for that player or those players being successful, and so I don't think surprise is the right word, but obviously pleased.
How does his development over the course of the season either change your outlook on what the season could be, or how you maybe want to pivot to go this offseason? Did it have an impact at all?
That's a good question. I don't know that we've determined that. That's part of this postseason process that we're going to go through, evaluating the roster, determining what we need to do in this offseason. Obviously, we feel good about the quarterback position.
How did you see Kellen just go as a coach this season?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When did you see Kellen just kind of grow and develop as a coach?
I haven't thought about it in that term, but listen, I think he's done an excellent job. And under
I think he asked about how Kellen's grown as a coach.
some really difficult circumstances, we hired Kellen under a set of circumstances relative to the quarterback, and then that changed dramatically, and he didn't bat an eye. Just, okay, what's the next step that we have to do, and how do we attack it? And that was impressive right from the beginning. And then during the course of the season, obviously there's circumstances and things that come up during the course of the year that you can think you're prepared for, but you're really not because you haven't been put in that position. And I think in virtually every case, he handled it really well. And so that's been exciting to see.
Kellen, if you remember, he gets hired, right? First two press conferences. Derek Carr situation. Well, he dealt with the Carr situation, and then Carr retires. And then right around that time is when the whole, New Orleans diocese and the whole thing, that whole thing with the Saints broke. So he dealt with all this not football stuff immediately, and none of it was expected. Right? Then he has to deal with the draft. He has to hire all of his staff. He has to deal with the draft. Then he's got to deal with the quarterback competition. He's got to make that decision. And what Kellen, he won't win Coach of the Year, and he shouldn't win Coach of the Year, but what a coaching job from every single level. The X's and O's side of things, the human side of things, managing the roster, managing the locker room. This is, y'all know, I had super high hopes for Kellen, and I really believed in him before he was the head coach of the Saints. I was fighting for him every single day on here. Every time I heard some other name, it's like, no, guys, come on. Kellen Moore's the guy. Kellen Moore's the guy. Kellen Moore's the guy. And even me, who was as high on him as possible, this job that he did is even better than what I thought he would do, and even better than what I was hoping for. I cannot believe how good of a year he had under the circumstances that he was given. What a difficult first year for a coach.
Handle the situation. You're going to obviously have a situation coming up with some legendary veteran players in Gannon, DeMario, and even Taysom. Have you thought about how you'll handle that, what their futures could be, letting them test free agency, or maybe what the plan could be?
Yeah, I think, and it's not just specific to those guys, but there's a process that we go through at the end of the season. It's an evaluation, and then it's a determination of, hey, do they want to come back? Do we want them back? And then even that, there's still, okay, there's a lot of variables, What's the contract situation? What's the timeline? There's just too many variables for me to give you a definitive answer on any of that. But
yeah, the Saints usually take 2 weeks to do their evaluations, and they have these conversations to kind of year-end review or whatever. I think Cam and DeMario will both come back. I think they'll, unless they want to go somewhere else for some reason, for whatever, but I think they'll both be back. And I think they'll, I mean, obviously they have to, give them new deals or whatever, but, and I think Taysom will retire, but, or he won't be on the Saints. But I think Cam and DeMario are much needed in the locker room. I think they're needed on the field. I think they're playing at a high level. And both of them kind of deserve, after being talisman for this team for the last couple of years, during some really rough times, I think they deserve okay, let's go. Let's try and win this division. Let's play some meaningful football. So I hope they come back, and I think they will.
Look, I'm excited to hear when those guys declare they want to be back here, and I would say on the surface we definitely want to have them back, but there's just so many other variables that exist that I can't really answer that question right now.
Kellen, anything from the season that was super instructive for you? Was there any sort of stuff you went through this year where you kind of identified like you need to change my process here or anything like that?
Oh, no question. I think that's the beauty of what we're going through right now is, Mickey's kind of alluding to this whole offseason process. It's just a really awesome opportunity to grow as a team, certainly myself individually, to just go back through the entire season, our entire process from the offseason program to how we went through the draft process, all the way leading into the season. And so there's definitely opportunities to grow, get better. I feel like credit to our guys, again, like we've said a lot. The people that we have in this building are really special. And I think that's certainly the foundation of this, from the connection between the personnel department, the coaching, everyone else that works in this building from a day-to-day process, the players, the buy-in, the connection, I think is really, really special. And so if you start there and just keep getting better, we'll be on the right path.
You got to feel good, as a Saints fan, looking at them and seeing okay, how are they going to handle free agency? How are they going to handle the draft? How are they going to handle the offseason? How are they going to handle camp? Because if they just do it again, you feel good, right? It's like the same people. There's the same cast of characters. Like, why would you not feel good about the draft? Why would you not feel good about free agency? Why would you not feel good about the offseason and their training camp and just how they operate? Like, it worked in a situation where it probably shouldn't have worked, but it worked. So I have, full faith in this group, and I can't wait to see what they do.
There was a lot of fluctuation when it comes to the roster, whether it be trades or injuries. How much did that impact developing the offense at the pace you wanted to?
Say that again, sir.
The fluctuation of the roster when it came to injuries and trades, how much did that fluctuate and maybe alter the timeline of developing the offense the way you wanted to?
I'd just say that's going to happen every single year. Injuries, adjustments to the roster, and just your ability to pivot is really important. And so certainly we feel like there's a lot of opportunities to grow, to get better collectively. And I think that's the beauty of what this offseason is going to provide us, is just a really clean platform to use last year as an excellent resource to evaluate it, dig into everything, and then find a really good path moving forward.
Kellen, do you anticipate any changes to your staff?
Well, certainly, we feel great about the staff. It's an awesome staff. Really appreciate these guys coming together. And, you always have to stay ready for different adjustments. We have a really talented staff, and so you got to be ready for the opportunities that may arise for these guys. And so we'll go through that whole process as we go through this. But it's been a really good staff.
For both of you guys?
I think the big question with the staff is special teams, because I think that was the big area of weakness for this team, whether it was punting or just operations. There was just... even just like kick returns and stuff like that, it was never smooth. It was never fluid. There was always mistakes. It just wasn't good. So I think special teams is probably the one you look at and you're like, all right, we probably have to get better here. Do we have the right people in place?
Just how much did it alter the vision after Derek decided to retire, and just what was that like, kind of going through just like a complete change of plan at that time?
Well, I would say that it just catches you a little bit off guard. And so you got to kind of recalibrate, okay, what's our plan going forward? Early in the off season, it's different than it is later. And then I don't know. It's just hard, it's hard to describe, really. It's a good question, but it just changes your course a little bit. That's really the best way to describe it.
Have you had any conversations with Greg? Do you think he could possibly play again, and how would that impact the organization? Do y'all have the rights to him?
I mean, he's on our retired list, so no, I haven't had any conversations with him.
I mean, I understand the questions. Like, I understand why they're asking them, but I was not expecting this many Derek Carr questions. I mean, if Mickey wants to talk to him, he can go to the comment section of the Homegrown Network. But I mean, I have no ill will towards Derek, and it is what it is, and it's a chapter of this team and whatever. But the best thing that happened to this team was him retiring, and mostly just because it shifted that culture. Like this was and whether it's to any fault of Derek or not or whatever, but I mean, the last couple of years was just so disjointed, and I think a lot of that was because of Dennis Allen. A lot of that was just, I mean, the locker room was a mess, and the vibes were a mess, and ripping that Band-Aid off was the best thing that could have happened. And it couldn't have happened if he was either injured all year and not playing but on the roster, or tried to play or on the sideline or whatever. I mean, it was just a really ugly situation, and it became a very clean break from, it would have lingered for sure, one way or the other. It would have had to linger just because of the way the contract was set up and just the way that the rules of the NFL are. But the fact that it happened how it happened, and it was a perfect, clean break, man, I mean, like, you couldn't have asked for a better resolution to a really bad situation.
And then, Kellen, when you navigated this first season and came in, I'm sure you had a plan to how you were going to handle some of the adversity you did. Was it more difficult? Was it, what you expected? I mean, just kind of take us through where you were at maybe a year ago and where you're at now.
I think it's something we talked about. I think that's the thing that acknowledged it going into the season. We can be in a playoff run right now. We would have already faced adversity as well. Every team faces adversity. So I think it's how you handle adversity and how you're prepared for it and having the right people. And, certainly we went through some tough stretches. We had a couple, 4-game losing streaks in there. And I think the beauty of it was the way our guys responded, the way this building operated. You would have never thought that, and certainly we've all been exposed to different buildings, different structures, maybe have had more challenges in those situations. I think the people aspect of this thing was really special. And so, when you talk about some of those leaders, their willingness to embrace some change, some adjustments, some things that maybe feel different than what they're used to. And, when those guys follow that, certainly the young guys will follow that lead.
I remember when I learned how to drive, and I think everybody has their own different stories or whatever, how they learned how to drive. But I remember my dad took me to like parking lots, or we would drive there or whatever. And he first taught me how to drive in reverse. And so the first, whatever I did was all in reverse. I was just driving around the parking lot in reverse. I was parking in reverse. I was turning in reverse. I was doing the whole thing in reverse. And his line of thinking was, if you can drive in reverse, if you can drive when everything's backwards, and when you can drive when, a really uncomfortable situation is even more uncomfortable, right? Like your first time in a car, but then now you're looking backwards. You're, everything's reversed. If you can do that and learn how to do that, it's going to be the easiest thing in the world to drive straight. It's going to be the easiest thing in the world to just sit back and just drive with what's in front of you. And it worked, it worked out. And I think that's how Kellen's first year was. He navigated everything perfectly in the most imperfect situation possible. And so now, this upcoming season, when everything's in place, when everything is in front of him, he's got to be feeling like he's on vacation. He's got to be feeling like, damn, I don't have to hire my staff. I don't have to worry about the Derek Carr retiring injury situation. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I know who my quarterback is. I know my roster. I've got all these young guys from last year. I know the personnel department. I mean, think about it, like the first month of Kellen on the job, he's meeting these people for the first time. Like him and Mickey, are just meeting. And now they've had a whole year of working together. They've had a whole year of working with the personnel department, the scouting department, versus having 3 weeks or whatever it was before the draft. So it's just, he already has like a perfect record, I would say, in an imperfect situation. And now he's got calm seas, right? Now he's got a super easy linear track to this season. So, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. But if I'm Kellen, I'm feeling like $1 million.
How much does that help you to just know that you can brainstorm around pieces that the ones that you have now are going to be there? Because I assume that changed on you last year too, that you're kind of envisioning one thing and you have to adjust. Like, just knowing some stuff settled, like, does that help you just with what you're doing?
I think it's a great opportunity in the offseason to have some solidified, guys in place that, certainly you can build around. And I think that's what's great. We have a season of plenty of highs and lows. lot of good film out there, a lot of good things that we can improve on, and we get to go through this thing collectively as a group and kind of paint the picture of what this thing needs to look like moving forward. And so, coaches certainly will do a lot of that. Players will be a part of that process as we go through this, and there's a lot of excitement around that.
Mickey, how high is it on your list? Because I know you obviously have to do a whole process of evaluating what you need, what your plan is. How high is it on your list to get an extension with Chris Olave done? And are you optimistic that you guys will be able to do that?
Well, Chris is obviously an important player to us and had a really good season, but we haven't even really spent much time thinking about that right now. I mean, we've had a couple conversations with his agent, but that's part of that'll be part of this off season. I can't tell you how high it is or low it is. I don't have the whole list yet.
Chris was just named to the second team All-Pro. So really impressive year for Chris Olave, coming back from a lot of turmoil, whether it was the injury, which itself is hard to come back from, but then also the psychological side of, like, do I want to retire? I mean, he talked about it. At 24 years old, he was really thinking about retiring because, yeah, it's a scary thing for sure. And for him to not only come back, but to come back and be the man, to come back and have a year as good as he had. Really, really impressive stuff. So I think Chris Olave is another one who silenced all critics and answered every question. There was, if you ask me, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, yeah, you pay him. I think it's the easiest thing in the world. Pay him. Yeah. Pay him. He obviously has a good relationship with Tyler Shuck, who is, the cornerstone of this window. So it's why would you willingly lose a huge piece of the offense who has a great relationship with the quarterback when they're both 26 and 25 years old? But yeah, just pay him and make him a Saint for a long time, and that's another thing we won't have to worry about. And then build around him, and you can do that. Those are the kind of things you can do because of all these rookie contracts. You can pay whoever. Right, like you can pay Chris Olave the money he deserves. You can go get Breece Hall. You can do all that stuff because you're left tackle and right tackle and quarterback and linebacker and cornerback and safety, and they're all on rookie deals. So even if it's for just a couple of years, yeah, go pay this guy. Go get a guard. Go get a defensive tackle. Go get Breece Hall. Go pay Chris Olave. Do it, and then get more players in the draft. So yeah, I'm all for paying them.
Are there any specific players that require long rehab this offseason? Anybody who missing in the summer program?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think anyone that should necessarily impact training camp that was in addition to people that already had injuries prior to during the season. Nothing on the back end of the season necessarily, but that's what NFL seasons are. There's plenty of guys that'll go through a lot of cleanups and different things through the next week or two. And those guys will go on that process. OTAs, some guys go through a little bit of a process where they're working their way back. But, training camp looks like, a lot of optimism that a lot of guys will be available and ready to go.
What did Taysom Hill's injury end up being at the shoulder?
Yeah, just the AC.
Can I, last year when you got hired, you singled out certain players, and Alvin was one of them. Do you still have the same belief? Obviously people say, a running back over 30, you look at what's happened the last 2 years. Is it more injury and circumstances? Like, do you still have the same belief in Alvin?
Yeah, I love Alvin. What Alvin's meant to this organization has been awesome. He's come in, he's put in a ton of work. Obviously, these seasons all take different paths, and he's had to navigate an injury. And so, the most important thing for him is just to get healthy and be back to his self. And so, he's done a really good job of leading this group and providing that leadership. And so, excited for him.
I think Alvin might be another guy who, and Nick has talked about on his show how much care Alvin puts into his body and rehab and stuff like that. So Alvin may be another one where he's looking at this thing just like DeMario and Cam and saying, you know what? I see it. I see the vision for this offense. If I'm out there and I'm playing at a super high level, I can really make an impact. And we keep talking about Breece Hall or Jeremiah Love or whatever, but that's definitely high on the priority list, is to figure out where Alvin fits into all this. Because if Alvin's back and he's 100% and he's playing at a high level, and the team feels good about that, he could be really good in this offense. Now, that's a lot of questions, right? Like that's a lot of questions they have to answer. But I think right now, just because he hasn't played in a little while, he's been kind of out of sight, out of mind for fans and all that. But he is absolutely part of this equation moving forward. So that, as far as Mickey's priority list, that needs to be pretty high up there, is that plan of, okay, where does Alvin fit into this? What actually is the plan moving forward? Is he the de facto starting running back, or are we looking at a timeshare, or are we looking at like what goes on there?
What are your impressions of Mickey overall of the rookie class?
And real quick, but and you absolutely have to have that answered before your draft prep, because you're the 8th overall pick and Jeremiah Love could be sitting there. Like, you need to know going into that draft what that plan is.
The way that Quincy stepped up, the way that Devin, but he was some people else, Tyler Shough, Kelvin Bex, and everyone included.
Yeah, I think that I think all of us would say we're pretty excited about the group as a whole. The things that they did, sometimes under different circumstances. Kelvin coming in, moving right to left tackle. He had some really good flashes during the course of the season. Obviously, there's room for improvement. Tyler, what he's done, that's been the focal point, I think, in the media about Tyler. But what Jonas Sanker and even Devin Neal coming in, Quincy, who am I missing?
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny Stutzman. I mean, all these guys have really stepped up and done a great job. They've been professional about the way they've approached their craft. Even Vernon Broughton, who, we didn't get a chance to see a lot of because he got hurt pretty early. I think we're excited about his prospects. Maliki at tight end. Fidel. I mean, all of them just to a man. I think we're really excited about this class and have a lot of high hopes for them going forward.
It was one of your better classes in a while. Was there anything that you identified in your process to those players that changed from how you guys were doing things, or is it the introduction of the new coaching staff to get their input? What do you think kind of led to a better hit rate on the overall?
Yeah, look, we've had some really great classes. 2006, 2017 come immediately to mind, but there's been some other ones as well. So, it's gonna, you're gonna have years where, man, it seems like everyone's working out and doing well, and this is early. We shouldn't be judging our draft class after.
I agree. I think right now it looks like the draft class is going to be super sweet, no doubt about it. But it's definitely early to say, oh yes, it's the best draft class ever. It's on that track, but yeah, it's been. Tyler Shuck's played 9 games.
After 1 year, we need to wait a few years, but we're pretty optimistic at this point. And some of that's circumstantial, like. Jonas got his opportunity. Quincy got their opportunity because of injuries and circumstance. And so sometimes, you have years where you have draft picks that don't get those opportunities. And so it takes a while for them to be able to perform. So, but we're excited about it is the bottom line.
That's where a draft class, it does become interesting, right? Because to me, like Zach Baughn's a great example. Drafting Zach Baughan and identifying him as a prospect is a huge win for the scouting department, personnel department, whatever. Him not playing and him not ever seeing that come to fruition on the field, that is separate from the draft process. Like Trey Hendrickson being drafted, huge win. So similar to this, like Jonas Sanker is a huge win across the board because he got to play. But even if he didn't play, it's a huge win for the department to just find him. So there's like two things when it comes to viewing a draft class. And I think a lot of times we lump them into the same thing, but in reality, it's two different things. You've got identifying the prospect, and you've got the actual implementation of the player. And one is like a scouting personnel, whatever, and the other one is coaching and schematic and circumstantial in a lot of situations. So it's interesting how a draft class can be viewed and how that view can change. That view can dramatically shift by when a player plays, how they play, the circumstances around them, the team they're on. all that kind of stuff. So
Chase Young season out of the contract you got him under last
Yeah.
season.
Well, my first impression is I wish he would have been able to play 17 games because I think when he came back after week 5, that really impacted our defense. And the way they performed from that point forward was pretty spectacular, I thought. And Brandon Staley and the entire coaching staff did a great job. The players bought into the scheme and the system, and just every week it felt like they got better and better, and all the way through the end of the season. So that was impressive.
Kellen, how would you describe working with Brandon Staley and the job he did, especially, like Mickey said, once Chase Young came back in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I just give a ton of credit to our defensive staff. You can see the improvement, like Mickey was saying, throughout the season. Their ability to connect. It was a staff that a lot of people from different places, and so getting together and coming together and getting alignment, I thought was critical, and I thought they just did an excellent job of that. And their adaptability, I thought they did a really good job as the season progressed. Adaptability, willingness to adjust, based off kind of matchups and personnel and all that fun stuff. But we got a bunch of really good people, and so I felt great about it.
Coordinator of the year, Brandon Staley should absolutely be in the conversation. What a job. The Saints defense, high level. One of the elite squads in any metric you can find, especially against the run. And this is a team that was absolute ass last year. Absolutely horrible. He's got a multitude of players playing either their career best, right? DeMario Davis, career high in tackles. Chase Young. If he plays the whole season, I mean, who knows? Myles Garrett set the single season sack record, but Chase Young would have had absolutely a conversation in the Defensive Player of the Year finalist or nominee. He had a higher pressure rate than Myles Garrett. If you go and look, they just go in PFF, and they're great for edge rushers. I think he's the 4th. What a deal, what a season, and just so impressed with Chase Young. But Brandon Staley took a group and. Cam Jordan, all of a sudden Cam Jordan's got double-digit sacks, and he had a combination of veterans. Think about what Brandon Staley had to work with. He had a combination of veterans, but then he also has a ton of rookies. And then he's got young players like Chase Young. He's got a little bit of everything. It's all right, what do I do with the vets? What do I do with a player in between? Chase Young, who's played a few years here, super high ceiling, all that stuff. And then what do I do with these rookies? And he turned it into an elite defense.
You talked about it multiple times before, but what has been that special factor for Kellen that's allowed him to continue to ascend week in and week out?
Yeah, I think he's just really, truly at the end of the day, he's a humble, hardworking guy. He doesn't let mistakes snowball. To go play left tackle in this league as a rookie, and to play as many hard downs as he's had to play against some of the premier players in this league. That's as hard as it is. That's as hard as it goes, and his willingness to just go for it, embrace it, get better each week. Tons of credit to him, and we're fired up to have him.
Several players, veteran or otherwise, have kind of expressed a desire to be a part of what's getting built here. What does that mean to you, and how do you go about creating sort of that environment that players want to be a part of?
Yeah, no, I certainly think it comes down to people. It comes down to having really, really good people in the building, which certainly I think from an evaluation process, we've just put a ton of emphasis in for a number of years, and that's allowed us to have the type of locker room we have. And then just the consistency of how our players, how our coaches, how everyone operates from a day-to-day basis. I think hopefully it creates an environment that allows everyone to be their best.
Mickey, was there ever a serious consideration of bringing in a veteran quarterback after Derek retired, or did you guys kind of right away feel like let's go with the other guy?
Well, the timeline didn't fit that. I think the veteran quarterbacks that you would bring in and compete for your, the position were pretty much all gone.
Yeah.
By the time that all got settled out. So, yeah, we had some discussions about that, but the opportunity really didn't exist.
And then part two of that is, did you leave it up to Kellen and the coaching staff, or did you guys have long discussions about the ideal timeline for Tyler and all that, or once you give them their roster, that's completely up to them? And then did you like the way that ended up playing out, obviously?
Are you talking about in terms of when Tyler played?
At the beginning of this thing,
Yeah.
coming in.
So, who is starting, who is playing is a coach's decision. But certainly we had a lot of discussions about that during during training camp, during the season, but yeah, obviously I like the way that turned out. I think it was exactly the right way to approach it, and I think Kellen and the staff did a great job of developing the position. We got, it wasn't just one young guy. We got 3 young guys in that room, and that's a difficult proposition for as a coach. And I thought they handled it perfectly.
It's always important to remember, like the Saints, something that's great for the coaches is that the GM stays out of that. Right? You look at a lot of other GMs; they are very active in who they want playing, who they want starting, who they want doing what, and that's a tough one. Right? That's a tough relationship. Mickey, to no surprise to anybody, is a finance guy. He's handling the contracts, all that, the actual GM only. He is not worried about the roster as far as game day, who's starting, who's playing where, how they're. That's up to the coaches. And for a coach, that is a huge positive. To be left alone, to be allowed to coach. So I think sometimes the duties of coaches and GMs and owners and whatever can get a little mixed up. So it's important to remember how the Saints operate. And how the Saints operate, they've always operated like that, since Mickey's been there. So Kellen and Brandon, they have free reign to coach how they want to coach.
Is that going to be a big impossibility for this offseason to bring in, since Tyler is going to be your guy, like a veteran who's been there, done that can potentially.
It's a good question.
The veteran quarterback thing, y'all know, I think is probably like a top 5 most overrated narrative in sports.
We feel great about that room. You're always trying to raise the level of a room, trying to get better, trying to improve. I think one guy in that room that kind of lose sight is like Taysom was in that room the entire year. He's been in some of the best quarterback rooms in the entire NFL, and his leadership, what he brought to those guys, even when he's playing his role where he plays every other position, he brought an excellent form of leadership to those guys and experience that they were able to lean into.
Kellen, Cam DeMar, I've already said they want to play in 2026. Have you talked to Taysom about whether he wants to play in 2026 or retirement possibility?
We'll talk through all that process. I think for all these players, I think the goal really is, I'm just appreciative of their work. That's the most important thing. And then the offseason is the offseason for a reason. You let the emotions get away from all these seasons and all that sort of stuff, and then take some time. And, we'll have plenty of discussions, with everyone.
The Saints have always mentioned that they like to give the players like 2 weeks to kind of let the emotions out, right? Like you don't want, of course, right after a season, everyone's like, I want to play, let's get back out there. But then a couple weeks go by, whatever, and it's like, okay, let me. So I think it's smart that they wait like a couple weeks to let everything die down, let the players detach, get away from everything, and then come back and have honest conversations.
How does the timeline for y'all's sort of evaluation process this year? I know you usually kind of take a week away, and how do you plan to do it?
Yeah, saying we're going to, get the next 10 days, and I think Kellen's letting his staff, take the next 10 days or so. They'll come back, and we'll walk through the evaluations, their evaluations of the players, and then from that we'll start generating our off-season plan.
Chris, you saying that with Spencer Rattler, gives them deserves another opportunity to start? Difficult for Derek and Tyler. Would you be open to moving in? Did he express an interest in being trained as Tyler?
No, we're not anywhere in that. We haven't had any kind of discussions about that.
Mickey, what role do you think, patience and not being overly reactionary has played in you building this thing, possibly 3 times now over the last couple of decades, just not overreacting to the noise and giving guys time to do their job and grow, and maybe not even pushing hey, you got to get the young quarterback in there like some teams do. How much do you think that helps with building this organization?
How much does it help? I don't know that I can answer that. That's just, that's really, I probably am overly patient. Sometimes your greatest strengths become become a weakness, and so I'm really patient, I feel like, and whether it helps or not, hopefully it does. I think it does, but I'll continue to be that way. Again, we're excited about Tyler. You're all excited about Tyler. We're excited about Tyler, but we have to remember that He hasn't had 17 starts yet. So we're going to go into next season with these high expectations. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we also have to temper that by the fact that he's a rookie, not a rookie, he's a second-year quarterback, and he's had less than a full season to start. So we got to keep that in mind as we go forward, that there's building blocks here, and we cannot skip any steps.
The Saints are probably the most patient organization in the NFL, just across the board, whether it's with coaches or players. I know Manchester United, I think they've had, it's either 10 coaches in 13 years or 13 coaches in 10 years since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And when you have turnover like that, it's not, you don't guarantee yourself that you will, that you'll find the right coach by being patient or whatever, but you absolutely guarantee yourself that you will not find the right coach if you're firing a coach every other year or every year or two in a year or whatever. I mean, that high volatility and that high turnover, it just cripples franchises, whether it's at the GM position or the quarterback position or the coaching position or whatever. It's impossible to get anything going and to be consistent. The Saints are one of the most consistent franchises of the last 20 plus years. I don't think it's a coincidence that they're also one of the most patient organizations where they kind of let things play out. I mean, even like the Breeze Payton, when you really look back at it, like John Harbaugh just got fired, right? When you think about Breeze and Payton's 3 consecutive 7-9 years, and then they start off that fourth year 0-2, that's kind of crazy. Because that's a long time. 3 consecutive seasons of 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. And you've got Breeze, you got Sean Payton. You got to be asking some serious questions in that room. You got to be asking some serious questions in the front office of, hey, is it time to move off this thing? Has the bloom come off the rose? Like, it's 3 straight years. And then all of a sudden, it turns around like that. Right, and a lot of other franchises doesn't happen like that. You think if Nick Sirianni goes 7-9 next year, and then 7-9 the following year, and then 7-9 the following year, you think he has a job? Hell no. But the Saints and Peyton and Breeze, they just didn't waver. So kudos to them for sure.
I'm going to go ahead and just follow up on that exact thing by maybe getting a little overexcited about Tyler. But when you do have somebody who does have some optimism at that position, is that like an attractive part and bringing people to the organization? Like I there's a lot of other things go into that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think, for example, in free agency, and I'm not going to necessarily use Tyler as an example, but players want to go to a place where they think they can be successful, and part of that success is definitely winning. And that if you have a quarterback prospect or a quarterback that you feel really good about, obviously that's attractive. It's attractive for coaches. It's attractive for players as well, and helps you in that free agency process. That happened for us, with Drew, and it happened really right after we got him. And then obviously as the years went on and he got better and better and put up these spectacular years, then you go to the top of the list of places where players want to come to and coaches want to come to. So yes, it definitely is a benefit.
That's a big question. Or not a question, but that's a big hypothetical is, well, what happens if this gets better? And it absolutely could. Tyler's played 9 games. The Saints won 6 games this year. What happens if next year he takes a step like Drake May and he is in the MVP conversation? And we're just using hypothetical. I'm not saying he's going to, or I'm predicting it or whatever. Just if he does. If he takes a step and the Saints are a 12-win team next year and Tyler Shuck is in the MVP conversation, think about how that changes this franchise, just as far as how it's viewed. They are right back to being the belle of the ball. They are right back to being can't win in the dome, dome field advantage, whatever. It happens overnight for sure, especially with Kellen Moore, where you've got, he's got his fingers on the pulse of the offense. So now, if you're an offensive player, you want to get down to New Orleans. You want to be a part of that. You want to play with an MVP level quarterback. You want to play in Kellen Moore's offense. That absolutely could be a thing. So we'll see. I mean, he, like Mickey said, he's played 9 games. He could take a step back next year, whatever. But there is, anytime you talk about ranges, yeah, he absolutely could take a step back. But the other end of that range is he takes a step forward. And if he takes a step forward, I mean, it's a crazy year. If you extrapolate his 9 games out into a full season, it's a crazy year. So if he takes a step forward in year 2, yeah, he absolutely could do what Drake May did.
Going back to the transitionary time, whenever Tyler did move in to become a starting quarterback, what let you know that that was the right moment for Kellen to switch him over there?
Well, I think that's a question for Kellen.
Yeah, no, I think as we've, what I think Tyler did an excellent job of is, Spencer earned the right to start coming out of training camp. That was first and foremost. I think everyone was aligned on that. Spencer earned the opportunity. I thought Spencer played some really good football early in the season. I think he gave us an opportunity. We didn't win games enough, but he gave us a lot of really good opportunities. And then Tyler just had a really good vision and plan to get better. And whether it's in the classroom, whether it's being a scout team quarterback, his preparation, he was always ready if the opportunity presented itself. And so I think it was certainly a healthy combination of feeling like, we can take another step, we can get better from an offense collectively. But I thought also Tyler, more importantly, felt like he'd taken some steps that he was ready to, have an opportunity to play. And, I thought he did some really good things. There were still some bumpy roads, like we played some games that were still hard early when he started, and he just kept staying steady, kept getting better. And, I thought he grew as those opportunities presented themselves.
I think those might be culminating to one moment, or was it a matriculation of a lot of things?
Yeah, he just got better. He just got better each week.
Well, that's the good part, too, is that when you give him so much time, it can't be one thing. It has to be a matriculation of things because it's, half the season. It can't be one good practice, one good training camp, one good throw because you're giving so much time for the bad to happen. So it has to be week over week over week over week of good for them to make that decision.
Yeah, I thought his ability to respond to some adverse situations, I think, was a really good indication of his ability to play football at a really high level in this league. And, when you throw an interception at Miami, you respond and play really good football in the second half and give yourself opportunities and then respond again the next week, at Tampa, in really rainy, challenging conditions and run the football for some big-time plays. He just did a really good job of getting better.
Maybe it's probably too soon for this, but Terry Fontenot, just maybe try getting back there.
Yeah, I haven't thought about anything like that. I'm disappointed for Terry. I thought he did some really good things there. I think, he built a really good roster, but sometimes those things don't work out. Feel bad for Terry and his family. I think the world of Terry Fontenot. I think he's a fantastic football administrator, and he'll land on his feet. He'll end up whatever he ends up deciding to do, and wherever he goes, whatever team ends up with him, they're going to be lucky to have him.
And just going back to the Trevor Penning trade from the deadline, what do you kind of take as lessons and executive when that happens? Just his development overall, trying at both positions, drafting him. Like, what do you think from that as an executive?
Well, I think. Listen, he's not the first player that we drafted that our vision for him didn't really fit what his skill set was ultimately, and the development timeline didn't fit, and so. That happens sometimes, and you go back and you look at it. Okay, what did we miss? I mean, we'll go through that. We've gone through that process. We'll go through it again. And look, I still think he has an opportunity to be a successful player in the league. It just didn't work out with us.
Mickey, how do you kind of take on your assets that you have this offseason, another top 10 pick draft, maybe some more cap flexibility? Like, how do you feel about where that stuff went?
Yeah, I feel good about that. I think we're going to have an opportunity to impact our team, and I'm excited about I'm excited about the draft class that's coming up. The discussions I've had with Jeff and his staff. There's a lot of players that will fit us. At a lot of different positions, so I'm excited about that. I think the depth of this draft class right now looks pretty good. and I think we're going to be in a position to kind of take the best player that's available that can impact our team, as opposed to we have to have, this position or that position. Obviously,
Mickey, give me a call. I mean, just unbelievable. But y'all know I agree. I'm glad Mickey's been watching the channel. Glad he agrees.
there'll be positions that we prefer, but I don't think we're going to be in a position where, hey, we have to get, this particular position. So I'm excited about that.
Does that up the odds at all? The ever elusive possible trade back if there is have to go in direction.
Yeah, it helps the odds. Yes.
If Mickey trades back, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of people apologizing to gum smacking Mick. If he decides, hey, watch this, and then trades back, gets more capital, lands a good player, and he's right. Like, this is the perfect time to trade back. Now, I mean, trading back's always tricky, right? Because you're passing up players. So who you passing up? Who are you getting? Who are you targeting? Whatever. But this is the perfect time for that because the Saints don't have a dire need in their, what you would say is like their dire need of guard or whatever. You're not really taking 8th overall anyway. So if the Saints are between 3 or 4 players, and they can trade down a couple picks and get one of those players still, yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I mean, so I would love it. I would love it, man. I mean, I think this draft is deep. I think there's not a lot of top end talent, but right now, I would be surprised if Dante Moore even went to the draft, right? So you go Mendoza 1, who's 2? 2 could be anybody. 2 could be a combination of about 6 different players. I've seen Arvell Reese fall as far as like 15. I've seen him go as high as 3, right? So it's one of those things where it's just, you don't know who's there. The draft is going to be really interesting this year, for sure. You're going to have some players fall, some players skyrocket, a week before the draft or whatever. But I think this is a good draft to trade down. And the Saints are in a good position to trade down because of all the young players that have stepped up.
Kellen, I know it's going to take a thorough review before you have your list, your priority list, but is first quarter offense, start of game offense, do you already know that that's going to be something you have to do a deep dive on and figure out?
It'll certainly be on the checklist of items we just want to evaluate, and that's just collectively as a football team in all 3 phases, just starting faster. Obviously, we can see the numbers. We recognize the impact it had on some of these games, and we see a lot of the good football that we played in some of these other quarters, and if we can marry that up with the way we start, we'll be in a great position.
I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Kellen, just me and him, and just try and figure that out. Because I would love to know. I want to know what the prep was as far as like the scripted plays and all that stuff, and then why things got so much better as the game went on. I think I know, but all I could do is guess. But Kellen is obviously a really good in-game. He has a really good idea of what's going on in the game, which is the complete opposite of Pete Carmichael. If y'all remember, Pete Carmichael, he might as well have not even been in the stadium. He was just going to call his plays, and then whatever happens, happens. Kubiak famously was bad at adjusting. He had his script, he had his plan, but if that plan didn't work, I'll see you next week. Kellen he's almost such a good adjuster that it becomes like a negative at the beginning of games. Because at the beginning of games, he's starting from 0. He's starting from nothing, right? And then as the game progresses, he's like, okay, now I got some information, now I got some data, now I got this, and he just gets better and better and better. And I don't know if he's entering the game with just that mindset of, hey, man, we're just going to kind of call it on the fly, see what happens here. But a full season is a lot of data. And the Saints were horrible first possession, first quarter, the entire season. And they were really good in the second half, really after the first possession, the entire season. So I don't know what was going on, but it definitely needs to be looked at.
Do you get a sense of the optimism around town for this, even in a 6-win season, the optimism around town? How do you process that? What do you feel about that? Do you pay attention to that at all?
Well, look, you can't. I'd probably be in a coma if I didn't recognize that there's optimism, and that's exciting. Look, I want our fans to feel optimistic and have a vision for, the same vision that we have for our team. So yes, I do feel it. I'm excited about that, just like I'm excited about our team. But I think one of the things that I do pretty well is tune out the noise. Tune out the noise when it's negative, and I think it's equally important to tune out the noise when it gets optimistic too. You have to find that balance, and I think that's one of the areas that I do a good job with.
You could really feel it in the city. I can tell you just from going to different, walking around, going to different bars, whatever, just talking to people. And obviously I see it thousands of times a day in comments and tweets, but you could just tell, and I'll tell you what really shifted was at a certain point, the default response when talking about the Saints was that, oh, they suck. Oh, they're awful. See you next year. Tank for Arch. It was like that whole thing. It was just default. And it fit, right? Like anybody could say it and it was fine. No matter what. It's like, y'all remember? I was in the minority being positive at all, right? And seeing things through kind of just like a realistic lens. If it wasn't just rant alert, wholly negative, Saints suck, sell the team. If it wasn't that, there was a little bit of pushback. And then it flipped immediately to anyone saying sell the team, tank for Arch, Kellen sucks, Shuck sucks, Mickey sucks. Anyone saying that was immediately met with like, hey man, have you not been watching the games? It's like people just tuned out of the Saints expecting that narrative to carry the entire season, and the narrative shifted so fast that they didn't realize it, and all of a sudden, like, the pushback people would get for saying that was immediate. And that's when I knew, like, all right, it's starting to swing. That's when I knew, like, it's starting to. I remember I was eating brunch, and at the Uber driver to brunch was like, yeah, fire Mickey, sell the team. Gail doesn't know what she's doing, whatever. And everybody was like, what do you mean? Like, did you not watch the game yesterday? I'm trying to think what game it was after. It was after a home game. It was after a win. It might have been the Panthers game. I think it was after the Panthers game. And it was a Monday. It was a Monday after the Panthers game. And everybody was like, did you not watch yesterday? And so that's like the big shift. The Saints became like a default positive narrative team.
Did you make it the job that Phil Galliano did as special teams coordinator?
Yeah. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, and this is what we call in the business a loaded question. And I think Kellen knows it's a loaded question because the special teams weren't good. So the open-ended question of what'd you think about the special teams coach? It would be insane for Kellen to be like, oh, special teams 10 out of 10, no doubt about it. It's like, well, you did release your kicker, you did bring in another kicker, the punting wasn't great, that. So this is definitely a roundabout question to get to. What are we going to do about special teams, my boy?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of moving pieces there. And so I thought a credit to Phil of kind of helping navigate that, from a, punter battle, that kind of went through all of training camp. We made a change at the kicker position midway through the season. Sheed, obviously, with the trade, halfway through the year. So we did have a lot of moving pieces there. And so I thought I did a really good job of helping a lot of young players get ready and prepared to contribute on our football team in the special teams that we're a little bit new to that aspect of football, and so are there areas that we want to improve on and get better? Absolutely, and that's certainly something we'll do in all three phases.
Well, there you go, and that's how you do it. Now, let me, from a former journalist, and remember, guys, I interviewed Robin Roberts, Nancy Pelosi. I've been in some of the highest leverage interview situations, but it's hard, but. Because Kellen really deflected that answer. He basically gave a non-answer. I know it's hard, but it's better to just straight up ask, special teams were a problem this year, or however you want to phrase it. How are you looking at working with Phil Galliano or whatever to address that in the offseason? And just go ahead and get straight to, we know it was bad. How are we going to fix it? What was the issues? What were the pain points? And how are you going to attack it? But good job, Kellen, right there. Kellen realized pretty quickly what was going on with that, and I think he handled answer really well.
Kellen, how would you assess just your first season of just in game as a head coach, that balance of calling plays offensively, but also kind of taking the full view of like what's going on in the game situations? How would you feel you did in this first year?
Yeah, like every area, there's going to be things that you're going to look back and want to improve on and get better and improve our process collectively as a football team and certainly as a staff. And so, I'm going to go through that whole process as well. I thought, calling plays and then managing the game management aspect of it. Obviously, you don't do that until you do it. And, so I feel like our process has gotten better and we'll continue to try and improve that.
Let me give you advice, Kellen. This is what I would do. I wouldn't even worry about it. I'd go get a team of poker players or, whatever, analytics guys, and I would just have them up there with the coordinators or wherever you want them. I'd have them running the numbers, and I would have them just available for you to ask, what's the percentage, and then you make the decision. That's what I would do. I would completely offload the GTO stuff. And I think it's crazy that every team doesn't do that by default. And I'm not saying they make the decision, but they just tell you, boom, like, hey, what's the number? Plus 3% go. And then you decide, do you actually go or not? You don't have to always go, but just know the number. Understand the situation to a mathematical level. These are billion-dollar businesses. They have quality control coaches who hold the coaches off the sideline. Famously, you saw the Sean McVay guy who his whole job is just to pull McVay back. You can hire a couple of guys or whoever to sit up there and crunch numbers and just give you a percentage. I think every single NFL team would benefit from that. I think it's crazy they don't do it already. And it would completely fix the in-game stuff. It would completely fix 2-point conversion, extra point, timeouts, whatever. And again, you're not telling them they're making the decisions. They're just giving you the number. And then it's up to the coach. And that way, the coach can explain in a post-game press conference or whatever, like, yep, we knew it was a 2% increase in win percentage, but I felt like, whatever, blank, 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 this is why we went the other way. Or we went for 2 because it was a 4.5% win percentage increase, and at that point we were trying to do everything we could to win the game. So I think it's crazy that teams don't do that. And that would be my advice to Kellen. I would go ahead, first thing I would do is go hire your team.
Feel like you had a comfort as the season, especially at the second half season. Did you feel like you had more of a comfort doing that?
Yeah, I think just, we had more time together on that task. We had more conversations. We were more prepared to be proactive in some situations, and so certainly feel better.
When you talk about special teams, like when a player like Jonas Sanker, who probably went into the season as a special teamer and then becomes a starter, how does that impact that special teams group?
Yeah, I think the injury factor, is a big part of this. Our vision of Jonas was he's going to be a 4-core special teamer, and after 1 week, he's our starting safety, and he plays a ton of snaps there. And so, obviously, there was a next man up component of this, and so certainly some younger players that were able to contribute on special teams that maybe started on practice squad or started as kind of an inactive player that quickly became the key contributors there. I thought those guys got better as the season went on. They embraced those roles, and I'm excited for the growth opportunities that those guys have.
All the defensive players talked about how they had trust and love to playing under Brandon Staley. How much confidence and ease did it give you during your first year having a defensive coordinator who could take care of that side of the ball for you?
Yeah, Brandon's done a phenomenal job for us. Obviously, my experience with him in the past, was a great resource, with our opportunity to team up together in Los Angeles for that 1 year. And so I thought Brandon did an excellent job of working with a staff that obviously, again, came from a number of different places, created an alignment. And then I thought the players and the coaches had a really good combination of buy-in and working really well together.
Mickey, the projections when it comes to the salary cap number for 2026 still show what would be an overage for you all in that area, but the amount is sort of light work as compared to what you've had to deal with in the past and navigated in the past. Does that change at all? Not necessarily signings and things like that, but the restructure plans, things does that change at all sort of how you go about maneuvering around getting to compliance?
Yeah, I think just the volume of things that we need to do is really what changes. Those numbers, when you look at them at the end of the season for any team, there's a lot of nuance behind all of it, because you just see a number. You don't see how many players are under contract, how many.
I was about to say that. Damn. Yeah, like a lot of the times the overall number, you got to then go into, okay, how many players are actually under contract? How many are not? How many? What is the actual number what do you actually have to do? Like Mickey said, the volume of like, okay, what's the volume of contracts you have to add? What's the volume of contracts you have to shed? Like what's the actual dollar and cents and all that? So there is definitely a big nuance to it.
Voids exist. How many of these, balloon numbers exist?
Like we talked about that a couple years ago with Alvin's contract, I think it was, where he had a fake year at the end of his contract that was like, it was like $18 million guaranteed. It was $18 million, zero guaranteed money or something like that. And everyone's factoring that in. And it's like, guys, that does not exist. Like, that is not a real thing. That's a completely fugazi year. But if you're just looking at the number with no nuance, it's on the paper. So the Saints and a lot of other teams now, they absolutely trick the numbers and trick the spreadsheets in order to get to compliance. And but like I said, no game has ever been canceled because a team couldn't pay the light bill.
For the next year, that you knew all along you weren't going to, that wasn't going to be their contract. So there's a lot of nuance to it. But, obviously over the last 2 or 3 years, those things that we have to do to get under the cap have diminished, and this will be it'll be the lightest work that Kai has to do.
Derek had a couple years like that, where I think Derek's last year, he was getting like $78 million a year or something. And it's like, guys, we're not going to ever get to the point to where Derek Carr is making $70 million. He's not going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL by $20 million. Like, it's not going to happen. But if you're just looking at it, you're like, look at this brain dead contract. Jesus Christ, you're giving Derek Carr $80 million in year 5. What the hell's going on? It's like, look, man, just quit drooling all over your Planet Namek, onesie pajama. Like that's not a thing. I'm telling you guys, like, it's hard. Right now is the time where you got to be the smartest possible football fan. And if you do not understand the nuances of the X's and O's, what's going on in the field, and then of course this kind of stuff, you're going to get lost.
And over the last couple of years,
channel.
So that's a good feeling. Yeah, we're going to definitely feel good about that. And remember that COVID year.
That was the big whoopsie poopsie. The big whoopsie poopsie was, and if you get into like, I don't want to get into like interdimensional physics or whatever, but like if you're looking at like an interdimensional physics, like the universal truth, right, is that I don't know how we got here, but if you're looking at like space and you're looking at time and all that, all of your math is that everything is slowly expanding, right? And it's kind of like a balloon. Like if you draw the universe on a balloon, you're like slowly inflating the balloon. And that's like the NFL salary cap. It's always slowly inflating. The NFL is always going to slowly inflate. Well, what will break physics is whenever the contraction happens. And if it happens, we don't have to get into the idea of the infinite and all that stuff. But that's what broke the NFL was, well, what happens when you don't make more money? And it's like, well, why would we make more money? Global pandemic, right? Like if some totally out of the structure of the league thing happened, like a global pandemic, like a world war, like a whatever, if that kind of stuff happens, shuts down the league doesn't make as much money, it contracts. All of the algorithms are not built on that. All of the algorithms are built on, shift, click, drag on Excel. You're just infinitely progressing. You're infinitely increasing your number. Well, what happens if in year 18 of that you decrease for a season or 2 seasons or whatever? It's like, well, I don't know what the hell is going to happen. And the Saints' whole thing, the universal truth was that the salary cap will always generate more money because the NFL is always going to increase and the NFL is always going to go up. And COVID threw a huge wrench in that.
That impact on our cap and every team's cap, that was a blow out of left field for us, and so we've had to overcome that, and it takes a while.
So kind of a 2 parts. I want both y'all's perspectives on it. For you, Mickey, like was Jaylen Pulk somebody that y'all were high on going into the draft? And, and is that why you wanted to pursue him? Then for Kellen, like what's kind of your vision for him once he's?
Yeah, we're definitely high on Jaylen in that draft, and I mean, we talked about, taking him at certain points, and so obviously doing it with him, and the opportunity came up. They had changing staff there, and we had an opportunity to get him. We knew he's not going to be able to play this year, but just looking with our eye forward, we're really excited about him, and his rehab's gone well, and he's been great in the building, great in the room, and I'll let Kellen take it.
Yeah, again, I think just, echoing a lot of the same things. I think really good example of just Mickey and the crew being really proactive and recognizing an opportunity that, from a longevity standpoint, is going to give us, a guy that we all felt really good about. I was in Philly for 2 years ago, and he went through the draft process. Everyone felt really good about Jaylen. Again, an example of, sometimes a change of scenery can be really beneficial for someone. He has been excellent this entire process. For our opportunity to kind of go through the rehab process with him here with our guys has been excellent. His work in the classroom where he can still be, around those guys has been awesome. And so I think it's going to provide him an opportunity to be just so much further ahead when he gets to the spring ball where, he's not going through that transition now. He's already gone through that process. And so obviously we feel like he's going to be able to play a really beneficial role for us.
Got to remember that with a lot of positions, right? Like everyone's thinking, like, well, we need a wide receiver, we need a defensive tackle, and you never know what the thought is in the building. They may view Jaylen Pulk as like a starter. They may view him as like, look, this guy is legit. Like this guy is as good, if not better, than what we're going to get out of this draft class. So to them, wide receiver might not even be a need, right? Vernon Broughton, they might be looking at him like, no, he will be a day one starter. Like this guy is good. We drafted him for a reason. So maybe defensive tackle isn't even on their big board for round one or whatever, so you do have to factor some of that stuff in with this team.
I may be getting way ahead of myself here, I apologize. But with Drew expected to go into the Hall of Fame, is there a chance that you all would request to play that game, knowing that it's an extra weekend, extra preseason game? I don't know if that's good or bad or something that you want to do.
Yeah, we've thought about that, obviously. And we don't want, I don't want to just assume that he's going to get in the Hall of Fame.
He will. He will be a unanimous. Yeah, he'll be. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame.
But yeah, I think that I think it'd be a good thing for our team to experience that.
That's a hell of a question.
And experience, that whole experience of the Hall of Fame is. I think it's really good for anyone involved in football and anyone who's a fan of football. And the fact that if Drew gets in. I think it'd be a great thing for us to play in that game.
Would that factor in to your guys' decision on whether to go away to camp or not?
Yeah, we'll talk through that whole process. I think that's obviously there's a lot of factors with that, going from what your regular season.
I mean, now that they mention it, it makes perfect sense for the Saints to play in that game.
The timeline looks like to certainly what your preseason schedule is going to look like, and so that's an off-season process we'll go through, and obviously we've had a lot of benefits of just the different opportunities we've had.
Maybe you brought Drew and Jari in this organization. Your thoughts on their candidacies for the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, they should be in there. Slam dunk. That's what I think.
Why?
No, I mean, I just think when you look at their body of work over time, two of the most. I mean, obviously Drew. Do we even need to talk about Drew's candidacy? We should.
Yeah, I mean, how is this a question? I mean, yeah, I think Drew Brees is a deserved Hall of Famer. He is. I think if you look at the whole thing, I think there's a real case that he's the second best quarterback to ever play. I think there's a real you could absolutely make that argument that he's 2, 3, 4 somewhere. I think he's for sure a top 5 quarterback to ever play the game. So if you are, if you're a top 5 player at any position, you should probably be in the Hall of Fame.
But Jari, I mean, he was one of the most important elements on an offense that had historically, over that time frame, and you've written this, Jeff. It was unlike anything seen in the NFL in the history of the league. I mean, that period of time where I think we were number 1 in offense for 6 times, maybe. The amount of points, the amount of yards, just the offensive output, and Jari was a huge part of that. And obviously, I think there's a disadvantage when you play in one of the smaller markets that isn't, no offense to any of you, a media hub. But I think Jerry would already be in had he played for the Bears or the Giants or one of these big market teams. He'd already be in. That's what I think.
New Orleans is such a weird media market because it is simultaneously one of the biggest, like, media, or maybe not media, but it's one of the biggest centers of media because of the Super Bowl, WrestleManias, Final Fours, all that's like, I mean, they have everything. Sugar Bowl, even Mardi Gras, and it has one of the biggest destinations of like Bourbon Street and the French Quarter. So it's very similar to Las Vegas, where, yeah, population, TV number, like things like that. Like, yeah, it's not Chicago, it's not Los Angeles, it's not New York, but it does have something that other places don't have. You know, it does have something as far as a destination or a media center or whatever. New Orleans is very, very unique when it comes to how it's viewed, like media-wise, for sure.
Do you think his role at guard and the way you all set up the offense around the 6-foot quarterback?
Yeah,
it's kind of overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, I do think it's overlooked, and the interior of the line, I think oftentimes gets overlooked in our league. The importance of the center and guards, and certainly with Drew, keeping that spot, 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage was important to protect that, and Jari and the guys that he played with over the years did a great job during that time frame, and again, Jari was a huge element of that. I think he should definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
Kellen Moore been a long way since he got drafted. We talked about him staying here and his wife's pregnant. And talked about a checklist of things. I know you talked about going from here to your house and kind of focused on this. Is there anything that you're kind of, it's your first chance in a few years to maybe sneak into an off-season culturally do?
This guy asks good questions. I don't know who that is just from a name, but he always asks good questions. He's good. He's good at that. I don't know, again, if someone knows who it is, but he always asks questions and I'm always like, damn, okay, out of the box thinking, pretty solid stuff. So just from a journalistic side, he's pretty spot on.
A few transition off seasons, so I'm excited for this one. This is going to be build off of the previous year. We're excited to just be here and just get to experience the city, the community, Mardi Gras, Pelicans last night, going to that game with the kids. And so we just love that.
Well, hey, man, if you ever want to get dinner, let me know, Kellen. I mean, I don't understand why you haven't reached out already. Maybe you have. I'm a busy guy. It is what it is. But, yeah, man, just come on downtown, and we'll figure it out. Mickey, same with you, Mickey, if you ever want to come down here, whatever.
Next steps for Tyler, you want him to do anything that you kind of part of during this?
Oh, there's plenty of steps. I think, again, it's just growth. Just keep getting better, keep communicating at a high level. And so, he'll put together, I'm sure, an excellent offseason plan to take advantage of the time that he has.
I'm curious about how you feel about Vindenberg saying he's junkie. Is that kind of an area where you can get better in terms of second?
Yeah, I think that's just a collective thing. I don't think that's necessarily, does Tyler want to get better? Absolutely. Can we get better from a protection standpoint, play calling standpoint? Obviously there's plenty of statistical things that we can look at and say, hey, let's get better here.
Looking into the season, there were players that weren't available due to injury and things like that. Felt more related to timeline than anything else and when they got injured. But with this year and coming off of how things were in 2024, where injuries were such a big impact, how do you feel about how that process went in terms of Ted Rath's job and the job that you guys on the team?
Yeah,
I think that was a big point of contention in the offseason was the lack of reps and the lack of practice. And I think from an injury standpoint, I think the Saints did really well because a lot of those, soft tissue injuries and all that, kind of did go away. And a lot of the injuries were more, a shoulder injury from an impact or, Chris was hurt with a blood clot, things like that. It was not the same old, it's a hamstring, Eric McCoy, tore his bicep, stuff like that. It wasn't the stuff that we were trying to dodge the last couple of years. Some of the stuff that happened to the Saints this year is stuff that you really couldn't change. And football is a very violent sport, But I think overall, the offseason and the plan to keep players healthy work.
I think I think Ted and his staff did a great job. our soft tissue injury rates were significantly impacted in a good
I mean, it's unbelievable. I should be the GM of this team. I mean, I'm just sitting here saying the same stuff they are.
way. Obviously, you don't want any injuries.
Yeah.
Some of them were circumstantial. So, I feel pretty good about where we're at. We're going to take a look at it again. The things that the injuries that happen, when they happen, how they happen. But I feel really good about that department.
That being said, Kellen, would you approach training camp the same way as you did last year, with the workload based on how many injuries you had, or is that something that you have to evaluate?
I can go ahead and tell you, Kellen's going to say, we're always evaluating. We're going to evaluate everything. We're always ready to change. We're always ready to pivot, whatever.
For a while.
Yeah, I think you have to evaluate it. We have to go back all the way through our process for this last calendar year. Where can we get better? Where can we find more opportunities? There's always a balancing act in training camp. That's our best opportunity for physical practices. And so we do have to have them physical, be a little bit uncomfortable, push through some elements. That's why I like, being here in the heat has some pros to that. But we got to get ready for a season, and those seasons are long, and we're expecting those seasons to be even longer moving forward. And so, that's a process that we'll just go through.
Mickey, for Cam Jordan to finish with 10.5 sacks after the last 2 years, what would you make of his season, and do you expect that type of rebound?
Well, and nothing that Cam does surprises me. When you've been with someone for 15 years, nothing he does surprises me. His greatest quality is he just is always available. It's a miracle on some level. But
availability is the best ability.
He's had lots of these years where he's actually, produced in the second half of a season, better than the early parts. And so I'm not surprised. Excited about it. Excited for him. Excited that he still has the same joy when he comes to work every day. He's always positive. He's always excited to be here. And man, that hasn't changed in 15 years. So, do we expect 10.5 sacks from him? No, I wouldn't say we expected that, but I'm excited for him.
I just wanted to get your take on Alvin season 2. I know Kellen touched on it earlier. I'm just curious on your
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate he got hurt toward the end of the season. But Alvin's always prepared. He's always he's a talented guy. I don't see a lot of difference there. I haven't had a conversation with Alvin, since the season ended. So I'm excited to have that with him and see where he's at in his mind space. But Alvin's he's been in such an important part of our team for the last 9 years, whatever it's been. And he's a talented player, and we have to give him the right opportunities, and we'll see how that goes going forward.
All right, let's talk expedience versus tonal.
Kellen, when you win 4 of your last 5 games like this and have momentum in a number of ways, what's the biggest positive impact that can have on a coaching staff, on players returning, and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, I think it just leads into our off-season program. In 15 weeks, OTAs start, the phase 1. So it's like, for these guys, I think the optimism and the way we finished obviously provides some juice there. Yeah. And then, it just puts these guys in a position for this off-season. These guys go away, they go do their own thing for a little bit, but it puts them in a position to have a really good plan to get better. And then before you know it, we'll be back together, getting better and taking advantage of that opportunity.
Mickey, the way you raved about 1 or 2 more questions, please. The way you raved about Jari Evans and his ability to help set up the offense for Drew. You have a taller quarterback now, but you have your tackle short up. How much is the interior of the offensive line going to be a priority?
Yeah, well, I think that the number one thing there is we've got to stay healthy.
AKA Eric McCoy needs to be on the field for more than a couple games every year. He is a pivotal part of that team, and we still don't know. What's a full season with Eric McCoy look like? How big of a difference is that? It's got to be a huge difference. Having Eric McCoy as your starting center, and with Talise Fuaga and Kelvin Banks, that's a big deal. Not having him not there, that's a lot. So McCoy's got to stay healthy.
Eric McCoy is a really, really good player, but he's been injured the last few years. So we have to examine that. Hey, are we putting him in difficult positions? How can we correct that, not let that happen again? Caesar's a really good player, and yet, we've got to get. I think we've got to get more out of him as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dylan stepped in after Trevor. The Trevor trade. I thought he did a good job. So
yeah, Rayden's kind of started to get things going in the right direction in the back half of the year.
Evaluate that interior offensive line, but and I think, by the way, we had a number of guys step in. Luke.
Yeah, I think Luke Fortner did a for what he was asked to do. I think he did a good job.
Came in and played for Eric and did a good job, but we're going to have to evaluate that position, and we've got some free agents there, so it's going to be an area that we pay a lot of attention to in this offseason.
Going back to the wider, you don't have to do as much work with the new wearing big practice. Does that allow you to be aggressive if you want to be and go on?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it would. We got to be judicious. We can't just go out there and just start, throwing contracts around and doing things that we wouldn't ordinarily do. But we will have some different opportunities.
All right, it just abruptly ended, but that's it. Okay, we did it. Over about 2 hours. Hope y'all enjoyed it. If you made it to the end, let me know. Unbelievable support, dedication. Good stuff, man. It's a different vibe, is it not? Different vibe. It's a great time to be a Saints fan. Sell the team, gum smacking Mick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.